Oh, and I love a good framework. Welcome back to another episode of Innovation for Entrepreneurs, the podcast that unlocks the secrets of successful product and service innovation and launch for businesses. I'm your host, Megan Anderson, innovationist, startup COO, and founder of Your Business Copilot, here to guide you through the exciting journey of entrepreneurship and innovation. Let's get started. Framework. In our context, the Cambridge Dictionary defines it as a system of rules, ideas, or beliefs that is used to plan or decide something. There's that other word, system. Bill Canaday in the 80/20 CEO uses system and framework interchangeably. Well, almost. He says, a system is a well-organized framework. Now we're getting somewhere. If a system is a well-organized framework, then that must mean that the framework is less organized. I like it. Despite my military background, I prefer less organized, less rules, and more general guidelines. Because when it comes to innovation, you need to remain creative. You need to know when to bend the rules and when to take risks. Too many constraints, and you'll lose sight of those things. So think of frameworks as guardrails, especially in startup. It gives some method to the madness, some bumpers to stay between, but also gives you the flexibility to remain creative and not shut down the dreamer in you. I'm here today to introduce you to the innovation framework. It may seem like a lot at first. This is just an introduction. We will break down each of these steps in future episodes of this series. But if you stick with me today, I will let you in on a little secret at the end. All right, the innovation framework. This framework is hardly mine. A lot of businesses use some form of this as a strategic approach to generate new ideas, evaluate them, and then implement them. I learned a version of this framework early in my startup career, and through real-life use and application, I've massaged it some to create what I use and teach new businesses today. The innovation framework has 3 phases. If you're familiar with the business world, you may recognize these phases as market opportunity, product market fit, and business case. To be more inclusive of those just entering and learning the business world, I like to use the terms exploration, creation, and activation. Also, these sound more fun and motivating, don't you think? But regardless of what we call these phases, what's important is what's inside them. Of course, we'll start with phase 1, exploration. Phase 1 is all about exploring problems, exploring unmet needs, exploring markets, exploring opportunities, exploring yourself. I like to put emphasis on the yourself part because with all that innovation has to offer, great ideas, great businesses, what's most important is creating something that you're passionate about. If you're not passionate about or connected to the problem you're solving, it becomes much harder to maintain the energy and commitment needed to succeed. Simon Sinek, a top author on business leadership, takes this a step further. He says, passion alone can't cut it. For passion to survive, it needs structure. A why provides that structure. Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why does your company exist? The why is the purpose, cause, or belief that inspires you to do what you do. When a why is clear, those who share that belief will be drawn to it and your passion will thrive. An investor once told me that they buy into the people of the business just as much, sometimes even more than the business itself. So figure out your why and be able to share it in a compelling storytelling fashion. It may just be the deciding factor between your yes and no in the Shark Tank. So even though I mentioned exploring yourself last, you may want to start there. It doesn't quite make sense to go through a whole phase of uncovering a deep need in a wide open market, only to discover that you don't have a passion for solving that problem. Once you've identified at least a generalized area or market that you're passionate about, then it's time to start exploring what the unmet needs are. If you've experienced this market, either as a consumer or in the workplace, you may already have an idea of what some of the unmet needs are, at least from your own perspective. That's at least one option of a starting point, but do not stop there. Spend the time, take the opportunity to learn as much as you can about how others are experiencing these unmet needs. There's a number of ways you can do this, just by general research, using the web and social media as tools, surveys. I find the most success in speaking with people. You can get to a deeper level of understanding their perspective through this method. You'll want to empathize with them. Get to the root of how they feel when they are experiencing the problem you're researching. What do they think? What do they say? What are they doing as alternatives or workarounds to this problem? Then organize these points into consumer pains and gains. We experience problems every day. Think of a problem you've experienced lately. I'll share one. With a new addition to our family, grocery shopping has become a new challenge. With a busy 5 and 4-year-old who like to ask a million questions and talk to everyone in the store, along with a newborn whose car seat takes up the whole cart, it's next to impossible to get this task done. Thankfully, a solution to this problem has already been solved. As simple as this solution is, not every business offers it, and quite surprisingly, it's only been around a few years. Insert Walmart Pickup. With technological advances in the use of apps, this solution has become even more user-friendly. Could they have done it by telephone? Sure. But there would have been some challenges, busy lines, etc. Due to this unique offering by Walmart, I now almost exclusively do our shopping there. Prior to, I'd visit more local stores, but even if the prices were a bit higher. This is what solving unique problems can do for your business. It can bring in new customers, just like Walmart did for our family. Let's back up a minute. I, the consumer, realized I had a new problem in my life. Oh shit, I now have 3 kids. How am I going to grocery shop? Walmart provides a solution to my problem and keeps the marketing simple. Here's an example of their problem statement for grocery pickup. We make it easier for busy moms of young children to shop so they can save time and stay sane. I'm in. Where do I sign up? But they are providing much more than this to me. I not only save time in the moment, but it makes shopping prep easier during the week. If I think of something we need, I simply can open the app and add it to my pickup cart. No more paper lists that I forget on the counter when I go to the store anyways. As a family, we also have a goal of reducing our unnecessary spending. Not having to physically go into the store refrains me from grabbing those unnecessary items. And maybe my favorite, this solution saves a family fight when I tell my daughters they can't get something they want in the store. Yes, Walmart solved an initial attractive problem for me, but there's much more value than that. Therefore, these additions are called value add. Don't overcomplicate your core problem with all of this, but these are things you'll want to think about when you're creating solutions to make them more attractive, competitive, and sticky. Okay, I'll share one more because while I was writing this episode, I had to take a quick brain break out to the garden, and it sparked a thought. And gardening is a bit like innovation and startup landscape. A bit of trial and error, a lot of learning, and watering those seeds even if the fruits of your labor are a ways out. Years ago in my gardening journey, I used to plant bush beans. You know, green beans that grow in a bush-like plant. I started to run into a couple of problems. First, the bushes took up a lot of real estate. And second, if I didn't get to the beans in time, the ones near the bottom of the plant would touch the dirt and sometimes mold. Insert vertical gardening and a simple switch to the pole bean. a green bean that grows on a vine-like plant. Now, I could buy a very expensive pre-made trellis for these to grow on, or we could DIY. Some innovative gardeners out on social media introduced the idea to me a couple of years ago to make an arched trellis out of a cattle panel. A 4x16 foot sturdy wire panel often used in farming as fencing and reasonably priced at around $40. Now, we're resourceful and crafty people, enough to do the next steps on our own. Avoid spendy shipping costs and picking this up ourselves. This thing is too long to fit in the back of a truck, so we'll pull our fishing boat with and put it in that to haul it home. Then, once we get it home, we need 2 people to arch it and hold it in place while it gets staked into the garden. Not a simple task, but doable. Once in place, the pole beans grow up it easily, and by the end of growing season, you have a beautiful leafy arch to walk through to get into your garden. But let's talk about another part of the equation. How could you turn this into a business? Surely there are others out there who would love this inexpensive solution to their garden problems as well. However, many may not have the means, a large trailer or boat, to pick up materials, or the skills to put it all together. You could offer such a service, bringing materials to their doorstep and setting up the system, all in a done-for-you fashion, just for an added price for your time and efforts. The next question is there an attractive enough market for this within your target location? These are all questions you should be asking yourself, researching and discovering during the exploration phase. Wonderful if you can help your mother's friend solve this problem by offering this service to her. Not wonderful if that's the end to your market. That's not a business-worthy solution. There's much more to share in the exploration phase, but this is just an introduction. You've now heard what is in this phase. In a couple of weeks, we'll dive much deeper into the how you can go about navigating this phase of the framework in an exclusive episode all about exploration. The next phase of the innovation framework is the creation phase, the fun part. I'm going to mention this here because it actually applies to both phase 1 and phase 2. In both of these phases, you're going to want to diverge before you converge. And you may do this in several iterations. What I mean by diverging. Has anyone seen the film series Divergent or read the books? That's how I keep these 2 terms straight. In the series, which is set in the future, there's a society that's divided into 5 distinct fractions, each representing a different virtue. Now, at the age of 16, every individual must choose to remain in their born fraction or transfer to another fraction for the rest of their lives, leaving their family. Before choosing date, each individual undergoes an aptitude test to determine which of the 5 fractions they are best suited for. This test is designed to reveal their dominant traits and virtues by simulating various scenarios in a controlled hallucinogenic state. The results typically indicate a clear alignment with one of the 5 fractions, what I think of as convergence. But in the series, a small percentage of individuals, like Tris Pryor, the main character, receive inconclusive results, indicating aptitude for multiple fractions. These individuals are labeled as divergent. So you can think of diverge as multiple or many, and converge as singular. In these phases, you want to begin your processes with lots of ideas on problems and solutions, the brainstorming stage. Then through your research, evidence, and validation processes, you want to converge, narrowing down your options until you get to a singular source. Some additional tips I can offer during the creation phase is start small, remain lean, test, build a little, repeat. It's bad business to build it all at once, spending a ton of money on a whole lot of assumptions. And if you're creating something that takes skills you don't have, like app development, for example, You don't yet have to go out and find yourself a developer. You can still do it yourself at these beginning stages. Start with a proof of concept. This can be doodles on the back of a napkin. By the way, why do we say back of the napkin? Is there a back? Concepts constructed via your favorite design tool like Figma. Sometimes you don't even need something to show at this stage. Just some ideated concept that you can speak to. Then the next step, speak to it. Reach back out to those you interviewed that experience this problem you're solving. Share your concepts with them. Gather their feedback. Iterate and again, repeat, build, repeat. What's important in this phase is to build something that meets what I call the three bulls. Ferdinand, Guapo, and Angus. No. I'm just kidding. The three bulls, BLES. Desirable, feasible, and viable. That's better. The bottom line is that products and services should be built incrementally and iteratively using prototypes and customer feedback. Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test, repeat. And you do this until you get to an MVP, a minimum viable product. A minimum viable product is what can be released to the market to test its viability and elicit consumer response. Eric Ries states in his book Lean Startup that version of a new product which allows a team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning about customers with the least effort. More to come on MVP in an explicit episode. Once you've reached MVP state, you're testing in the market. And not only are you testing what you've created, but you're testing what the market will pay for your creation. Money. That leads us to phase 3 of the framework, the activation phase. Drawing out how you are to activate this into a real, viable, and successful business. And this is a good time to point out that success looks different for everyone. And because we have a lot of different types of business owners and entrepreneurs listening in, first define what success looks like for you. Are you a solopreneur that is looking to cover your costs and make enough to pay yourself $100,000 per year? Or are you looking to build the next $1 million company? The purpose of this phase is to ensure you have a product that can sustain and grow in the market. Grow to the size of what you see as viable, sustainable, and successful to you. There's a lot we can unpack in this phase of the innovation framework. Since this is an introduction, I'm going to cover a few things today to get you headed in the right direction. We will unpack a lot more in future episodes. And it's okay to feel uncomfortable in this stage. When I was first introduced to innovation, this was a stage that had the most unfamiliar territory for myself as well. There's been a lot of learnings over the past several years and still more to come. I'll provide some basics for you, but I will also have some very knowledgeable guests on this subject coming in the future episodes because, frankly, not all of us are CFO material, and that's okay. Remember that in a startup, and actually in any growth strategy model, a lot of these numbers start as forecasts and projections. They are there to help you realize potentials and set goals. It's not until you start doing the work, the actionable tasks, selling in the market, where you get more concrete evidence and validation that these goals can be met. A great starting point is realizing your TAM-SAM-SOM. Total addressable market, which is the total demand for the product or service. Your serviceable addressable market, this segment of the TAM targeted by your products and services within your geographical reach. And your serviceable obtainable market, the portion of the SAM that you realistically expect to capture. Let's go through an example. Let's use the cattle panel garden trellis again. So looking at the total addressable market, here's an example. We'll assume the entire country. This is going to be the biggest number. In the entire country, in the US, let's say there are 100 million households. And then out of the 100 million households, there are 30% of households that are interested in gardening. And then out of those that are interested in gardening, only 10% of gardening households are interested in growing pole beans on trellis. So you would then calculate the cost of one trellis setup. So $40 for the trellis, 4 garden stakes. So let's say they're $6 a piece. So that's $24. So we're up to $64. And then you're going to charge $100 for your service fee for your time and effort of setting this up for somebody. So you're going to price this at $164. So then you would take, to calculate your TAM, 100 million households times 30%, which are the households interested in gardening, times 10%, which is the households interested in this solution, times the $164, which is your price point. That's going to equal almost $5 billion. But are we going to get $5 billion for this business? Well, that's when we break it down into the serviceable available market. Again, that is the market that your business can target with our services within our reach. So here's another example. Assume that we're not going to operate in the whole US. We're just going to operate in our state. And in our state, there are 5 million households. And again, out of the 5 million households, 30% are interested in gardening, and 10% of those 30% are interested in this pole bean trellis creation. The cost is still $164. So to calculate that, you do the same calculation. You just use 5 million households, a smaller subset of the country. So 5 million times 30% times 10% times $164 equals 246 million. Now we need to break that down a little bit further to the serviceable obtainable market, or the SOM. And that is a portion of the SAM that we can realistically capture given our resources and the competitive positioning. So assume our business can realistically capture 5% of the SAM that we just calculated. So then simply, to get our SOM, we take 246 million times 5%, and we are saying that this potentially could be a $12.3 million business. Once you have your SOM defined, then it's time to plan how you're going to get there as a business. Resources, costs, profit margins, cash flow, go-to-market strategy, goals, milestones, OKRs. This is when business planning can start to take place. Again, a lot to unpack, and we aren't going to go through it all today, but you now have a preview of some more topics to come later on in this series. Okay, you've made it to the end of today's episode with me, and I promised I'd let you in on a little secret. So here it is. This framework will work for any business. It does not have to be some new-to-world extraordinary invention. Let's look at a quick example. Let's say you live in a rural community where no lawn care service exists. Zero. Zilch. You couldn't even pay somebody $1,000 to get it done. So you decide to open one. You are meeting an unmet need of a lawn care service not being available to a certain market for those who cannot or do not want to, for various reasons, mow their own lawn. You're solving that problem with the business of lawn care. You just have to make the business case make sense. Don't go out and buy a $10,000 zero-turn lawnmower right away. That puts your business $10K in the hole on day one. Grab what you have, find a free push lawnmower somewhere, and do the dirty work. Will things take longer at first and be harder? Yes. Maybe take on the smaller lawns to start. Keep putting money back into the business and get yourself that zero turn once it makes business financial sense. Oh, I love a good framework. Speaking of frameworks, I'm excited to introduce my first guest episode next week, where I wildly discuss a similar framework used in a not so expected place, the place of love and relationships. Remember that part earlier in this episode where I expressed emphasis on exploring yourself in phase 1? Well, this is a framework you can use to do so. Tune in to Innovation for Entrepreneurs next week with guest and entrepreneur Sana Akand as we dive into her innovative approach to helping people unlock their super you. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe so you don't miss it. There's other ways to support the show and additional resources in the show notes, so check those out too. Until then, I'll leave you with this. To make tomorrow different from today, you must do something different today. So go out and get after it. Carpe diem.